successful carpenter ant, a top manager of a forest colony suddenly facing a hostile takeover. But instead of lawyers in expensive suits, the Ophiocordyceps fungus walks into your office. It doesn't send a notice of acquisition. It just breaches your chitin exoskeleton and begins a methodical asset seizure. Down in the microcosm, this isn't corporate raiding. It's a complete change of management at the cellular level. The fungus starts pumping out chemical cocktails, replacing your normal neurotransmitters with its own directives. You can still feel your legs, but you are no longer the one giving the orders. It is as if your brain became an operating system where a third-party virus gained admin access and initiated a relocation protocol. The host abandons its usual route, drops its foraging duties, and starts climbing up a plant stem, following the exact instructions of the invader. The fungus literally hijacks the musculoskeletal system, turning the insect into a mindless biological drone that obediently travels to the perfect humidity and temperature for the new corporate structure to thrive. The ant sinks its jaws into a leaf, locking itself in place like it is signing an unbreakable contract. Then comes the phase of total liquidation, where all the internal resources of the body are repurposed for the parasite's colony. Nutrients are siphoned off to build the mycelium, while a fruiting body erupts from the outside, ready to distribute spores to new shareholders. This isn't just death. It is total process optimization, where one creature's life becomes nothing more than seed capital for another's expansion. But the most terrifying part happens at the very end, when the sleepwalking ant picks a spot at the exact height needed for maximum spore dispersal. It freezes in a position mycologists call the death grip, and it will never take another step. At this moment, the parasite completes its integration, turning the former hard worker into a motionless monument to its victory. This whole drama plays out in the silence of the rainforest while we rush about our daily lives, completely unaware of the complex battles for mind control happening right under our feet. Do you want to know exactly how this fungus hacks the nervous system, turning a free individual into an obedient puppet, and why this process is absolutely unstoppable, no matter how strong the will to live? The most shocking part of this story is that the ant's brain remains completely intact. Picture this. You are sitting in your office, fully aware of your surroundings, but your hands start typing out a report you never planned to write. This doesn't bother capturing the command center or hacking the host's personality. It simply doesn't need to. Why waste energy rewriting complex neural software when you can just plug directly into the hardware? The fungus acts like a veteran hacker who skips the admin password entirely, cuts the wires connecting the keyboard to the hard drive, and solders its own connection straight into the circuit. Microscopic fungal threads, known as hyphae, infiltrate every segment of the insect's body. They tangle around the muscle fibers, turning them into a living set of marionette strings. While the ant is trapped in a chemical trance, the parasite literally steers its limbs. It is a true dictatorship inside an exoskeleton. The fungus releases specific metabolites that attack the peripheral nervous system, blocking signals from the brain and overriding them with its own impulses. The ant wants to turn left, but instead, its legs step to the right because the invader has already sent a command to the muscles, completely ignoring the protests of the central control system. And this brings up a highly uncomfortable question. Why doesn't the ant fight back? The parasite is a master of biochemical blackmail. It keeps the tissues alive just enough for the ant to walk, while entirely stripping away its ability to steer. It is like driving a car via remote access, where you can see the road, but the steering wheel has been ripped from your hands and locked by an invisible driver. The insect's brain is still functioning, desperately firing off alarm signals, but they drown in the white noise of chemical compounds pumped out by the mycelium. The ant is now just a biological exoskeleton, a shell for a massive engineering project unfolding inside. The invader doesn't just issue commands. It actively rebuilds the body's architecture to suit its needs, turning muscles into obedient mechanical drives. So why can't this poor operator just cut the wires and take back control? The real answer is that the fungus has already integrated its hyphae into the very structure of the muscle fibers, forging an unbreakable physical bond. Now, every single movement the ant makes is a movement authorized by the fungus. The victim becomes a hostage in a body that no longer obeys it. This isn't just a loss of willpower, it is the total loss of sovereignty over your own organism. And while the ant fully realizes the end is near, its legs continue their monotonous climb to the finish line, knowing exactly that there is no turning back. When an ant starts acting like a drunk tourist who wandered off the trail, the colony immediately activates its sanitary cordon protocol. The other workers notice the glitch instantly. Bizarre twitching, ignoring foraging duties, and inappropriate reactions to pheromones are all red flags of a social collapse. An ant colony runs on strict discipline, where productivity is the ultimate god, and disease is a critical system error that must be debugged immediately. You might assume the colony immediately tosses the infected worker out like a corrupted hard drive, but the reality is much more complex. Ants are masters of social hygiene, and their epidemic response strategy looks exactly like a cybersecurity protocol in a high-tech corporation. They don't rush to get rid of their sick colleague right away, balancing the fine line between risk and efficiency. First, the disinfection protocol kicks in, as nestmates actively lick the infected ant, desperately trying to physically scrub the fungal spores off its armor. It is like trying to wipe away a computer virus with hand sanitizer when the malware is already deep in the system memory. Sometimes it works, but if the mycelium has already taken root inside, this rescue effort just spreads the spores to the rest of the crew. So why don't they just cut their losses immediately? The answer is pure evolutionary calculus. The colony is a single superorganism, and every worker is an investment. Losing an individual too early means wasting a resource that could still yield a return. But the moment it becomes clear there is zero chance of recovery, the social immune system shifts into hardcore isolation mode. The ants drag the doomed worker out of the nest, exiling it to a literal exclusion zone. This is the geography of death. The colony's borders become a strict line where the right to rescue officially ends. Sensing the end, the parasite forces its victim to seek out a highly humid location where spore development will hit maximum efficiency. From the outside, it looks like a tragic exile, but for the colony, it is a cold calculation made to save thousands of others. Ants do not know pity. They only know survival algorithms. And this brings us to the most critical question. What happens if an infected ant manages to slip back deep into the nest before the guards spot the glitch? The cost of that single mistake could be measured in thousands of lives, turning a thriving metropolis into a graveyard where every citizen becomes the next victim of the fungal takeover. Is this strategy an evolutionary dead end? Or are we looking at a true biological masterpiece? From the fungus's perspective, the answer is obvious. Is a genius architect that has brought the art of manipulation to absolute perfection. It doesn't just survive, it transforms the chaos of resource competition into a smoothly running assembly line. The parasite doesn't wipe out the entire species. It masterfully balances right on the edge, keeping the host population dense enough to fuel an endless cycle of reproduction. This isn't the destruction of an ecosystem. It is its most delicate find. But hidden inside this biological harmony is a terrifying philosophical depth. If a fungus can hack the complex behavioral software of an ant, what stops nature from cooking up something similar for more advanced creatures? We like to think of ourselves as the crown of evolution, protected by our powerful immune systems and complex consciousness. But the history of parasites is a never-ending arms race, and the winner is always the one who hides the best. The darkness. Just think about it for a second. Could similar microscopic invaders have influenced the development of human civilization, quietly tweaking our preferences and social patterns? It sounds like the plot of a paranoid thriller. But biology is full of examples where simple organisms alter the behavior of warm-blooded animals, making them more reckless or anxious. Sure, your brain is vastly more complex than an ant's, and direct physical hijacking of your limbs is impossible here. But who said the parasite needs to control the hardware at all? All it has to do is whisper in the language of neurotransmitters, shifting our priorities by fine-tuning the dopamine system. We are terrified of viruses and bacteria that give us fevers, but the true horror belongs to the pathogens that don't kill you, but simply change the rules of the game. The evolutionary success of these organisms is built entirely on our own overconfidence. We build cities, invent technologies, and crown ourselves masters of the planet, while somewhere down in the forest leaf litter, A tiny spore is biding its time to prove that the boundaries of free will are far more permeable than we want to believe. Perhaps the real threat to humanity isn't an apocalyptic plague, but a quiet, almost invisible shift in the direction of our desires. Will a pathogen like this be the final chapter in the history of our species? Most likely, nature is much more conservative than that. But the sheer existence of such biological mastery forces you to look at your own free will in a completely different light. The next time you catch yourself acting on a strange, inexplicable impulse, just remember this fungus. In a world where every organism is either a hunter or a resource, we are all sitting right under an invisible microscope. And while science is busy studying the mechanics of the takeover, life continues its endless dance, where the roles of puppet and puppeteer can flip at any given second. We are just guests in this shadow theater, reading from a script written millions of years before we even arrived.